All right, welcome to lesson 1 on sequences, our new unit. So this lesson is called the Introduction to Sequences. Let's talk about what a sequence is. All a sequence is, I don't like the centering on that. Better. All right. All a sequence is a list of numbers. However, sometimes when we have a list of numbers, the sequence can follow a certain type of pattern. And all a pattern is a rule of how you get the next number, or the next term. So a pattern is the rule on how to get the next term. And I use the word term. All a term is a number in the sequence. So a pattern is a rule of how to get the next number or the next term. I'm going to erase this. So we have some common types of patterns that show up a lot, and I'm just going to teach them to you. And then on your worksheet, you're going to have to practice recognizing patterns. So, one very common type of pattern is if you end up adding or subtracting the same number each time. So let's say I start with 5, and then each time I'm going to add 2. So let's say 7, 9, 11, 13, and so on. So this is a pattern where, in this case, I'm adding 2 each time. There's also a type of pattern where you can multiply or divide by the same number each time. For example, let's say I start with 400, then I get 200, then 100, then 50. In this situation, I'm dividing by 2, cutting it in half each time. And so that is this type of pattern. Then there's some unique patterns, like adding the 2 previous numbers to get the next one. So for example, let's say I start with 1. Well, if I want to add the 2 previous numbers, it's 1, and the one before that's invisible, it's like a 0. So 1 plus 0 is just 1. Now to get the next one, 1 plus 1 is 2. So to get the next one, 1 plus 2 is 3. To get the next one, 2 plus 3 is 5. 3 plus 5 is 8. 5 plus 8 is 13, and so on. That's a unique type of pattern that exists. Another type that's unique is squaring each number. So to square something means to times it by itself. So the squareds, if I start with 0, 0 times 0 is 0. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. And this is the squared pattern. That's 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared. The squared just means to take the number and times it to itself. Then there's patterns where the pattern isn't the numbers, but the pattern is what you're adding. So for example, what if I add or subtract by 1 more each time? So my pattern is that what I'm adding by is changing by 1. So like if I start by 1 and I first add 1, so if I first want to add 1, then I get 2. Then, if I want to add 2, I'd get 4. Then, if I want to add 3, I'd get 7. Then, if I add 4, I get 11. Then, if I add 5, I get 16, and so on. So, it's not these numbers that have a pattern. It's not my sequence, but rather what I'm adding by is the pattern, because it's going by 1 each time. So, those are some very, very common types of patterns that exist in math. On your worksheet, like I said, you're just going to try to figure out, you're going to be given a sequence or list of numbers, and you're going to try to figure out what the pattern is and list the next couple of terms by using the pattern that you find.